Hello and welcome to a video excerpt from the October 12, 2022 Newtown Township Board of Supervisors meeting. My name is John Mack, and on November 5th, 2019, I was re-elected to serve a 6-year term as a Newtown supervisor. I hope that you find this and other short video clips from public meetings useful. At a public meeting on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, the Wrightstown Board of Supervisors approved a 10-year contract extension for police protection with Newtown Township. Under the terms of the deal, there is an automatic annual 5% increase in what Wrightstown will pay for police protection, which is the same terms as the first 20 years of contracted coverage. According to the 2022 Newtown Budget, the yearly fee that Newtown charges Wrightstown for this service is $846,529. Meanwhile, Newtown pays $6,074,422 per year for police services. This does not include pension payments. In a public comment before the votes were taken, Frank McCarron, a resident of Delancey Court, described this as a sweet deal for Wrightstown and a bad deal for Newtown. He focused on the cost per police call, which is much higher for Newtown than for Wrightstown, and suggested that the Board of Supervisors table this decision until it had enough opportunity to review more data, including patrol miles logged by the Newtown Police Department in Newtown versus Wrightstown.
Frank McCarron, Delancey Court. So speaking to you as a retired CFO, I would walk away from this deal if I were you. In my mind, this is a sweetheart deal for Wrightstown Township. So think about the current year 2022. For $850,000, for approximately that amount, they got 24/7, 365 days a year police coverage for 10 square miles, which is almost as large a territory as Newtown Township. And considering that Newtown Borough, which is 1 square mile and 2,000 people, spent $1 million last year as their police budget, and that Newtown Township, for its emergency services, for 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, spent $1.1 on its budget. There is no way that that is a fair number. Okay, it's just not. It's a gift. And when you look at this, there are 3 things that come in mind. One is relative calls. How many calls do they have versus how many calls do we have? The second is patrol miles. How many patrol miles in Wrightstown Township versus our township? That's the fleet utilization. And patrol hours. How many patrol hours in Wrightstown Township versus our township? That's what the police chief said he's used to benchmark how many officers he thinks he needs. And if you look at those factors, it just doesn't add up. Now, I listened to the Wrightstown Township Board of Supervisors meeting when they approved this. And the chair had said that he had looked back over the last 10 years and that their share of our police budget has been in the 12 to 14% range, consistent over those 10 years. Now, as the police chief reports here on calls, he also reports to Wrightstown Township. Now, they only meet once a month, and I think he's there every other month, so I don't have the data. But the months that I was able to look at, it seems like that 20% of the calls overall by this police department have been in Wrightstown Township. It sounds like a lot for relative 3,000 people versus 23,000 people total, but that's what it's been. And this issue came up 2 years ago. So when the 2021 budget was approved and we were all on Zoom, we were all in these little boxes, another resident, and I don't remember his name, it's an Italian name, but another resident had some data, and he had gone through this contract, which at the time was, I don't know, 800,000, less than 800,000. And he said that he had figured out that the average cost per call service in Wrightstown Township was $260 per call, but in Newtown Township it was $460 per call. And he's saying, why are we taxpayers subsidizing Wrightstown Township? He said, what he thought should happen is that number should be equalized, and Wrightstown's fees should go up accordingly to equalize that. And that was his recommendation. And I guess he must have brought this up someone with the board before, because he said, look, if you're concerned that Wrightstown is going to walk away from this contract and you're going to be stuck with, well, there goes with this revenue, and we're stuck with this. He said, if they come to you and say, we can get another township to do it for $260 per call and we're leaving, then we should disband our police force and go to that same township and get $260 per call, because that makes no sense. And in some ways, if you think of what eConsult said, they were sort of in the same mindset. Their recommendation was that you look to do a regionalized police force, that you merge the Newtown Township Police Force with Northampton Township, and that you bring along all the other small jurisdictions in Council Rock. And you bring that in, and you come up with, let's get centralized detectives, centralized infrastructure, let's reduce everyone's cost. So, it seems to me that we are just making a gift to Wrightstown Township at that rate. That is not something they can duplicate in the market. And based on relative calls, it's not relevant. And I would ask you to table this motion. This is renewal in November. Table this motion and ask for some statistics. How many are our calls, Newtown Township versus Wrightstown? How many patrol miles, Newtown Township versus Wrightstown? How many patrol hours, Newtown Township versus Wrightstown? And come up with a number that makes sense. And then go back and say, this is the number. Now, I guess there's some fear that maybe they'll say goodbye and we're going to have to raise our taxes. But quite frankly, that just means we'll have more police presence in Newtown Township because we're not subsidizing someone else. Now, this person 2 years ago had suggested that we look to false alarm calls. He thought there were like 1,000 false alarm calls. And he said, charge everybody $500 for false alarm calls in this area. Instead of hiring 3 officers, get rid of this contract, charge that for false alarm calls, and just bring this into Newtown. The one area that makes sense, honestly, if you could get, if Newtown Borough is spending $1 million for the 1 square mile that's surrounded completely by Newtown Township, go offer them for $850, we'll take over your department, because we won't have cops 10 miles away in Wrightstown Township. We won't have cars being driven, into the ground that we have to renew them. This contract, to me, I think makes absolutely no sense. And to renew it again for 10 years, I appreciate okay, we could cancel in 2 years if we wanted to, but there's inertia. And once you renew it, it's not going to get canceled. And the last thing I want to bring up is the pension. So at the same time we're getting this below market fee, they're not making any contribution to our pension plan for our police officers. They're getting a free ride on that. And what was interesting during this meeting, the Wrightstown Board of Supervisors, one of the vice chair asked the chair, did you bring up the pension matter? And he said, no, our lawyer's still looking at it, and we're not in a position yet to bring it up, but it'd be a nice bargaining chip to renegotiate this fee that you're about to agree to. I'm like, well, I don't know what's that about? And they alluded to something about a work session they had had. And the work session, just a minor mention of it, but because they don't have any police officers, their pension plan for police officers is now a pension plan for former police officers, and it's sitting with a surplus in it, funds they can't use. They're not able to move it over to their other township pension fund of regular employees. They're concerned the state's going to take the money back, and their lawyer's looking at whether or not it could be merged into your plan, and whether or not they could therefore get a lower fee by offering this to you. And then they threw out a number, $1 million. So there's $1 million sitting in this fund. They have no employees, no former police officers. And so not only did you give them a gift by not having them contribute to your pension plan, but that's resulted in them having $1 million that they're not going to try to get a lower fee from you, which I just find so outrageous. So I think before you approve this, get some more, just table it, get some more information. Look, I don't have access to data. If the data proves that, you know what, we really don't send cars there, and the calls, you found this monthly information, it's not really accurate on an overall basis, it's much lower. It's more in line with the 12% that they say that they're paying of our budget, then fine. Then you'll have plenty of time before November to approve it. I do have to wonder, though, what was the township's plan if Wrightstown had come back to you and said, we have no intention of renewing this, we're going to Northampton Township and they're going to do it with us. Did you have a plan? I would suspect you had no plan, because you know it's such a good deal for them that there's no way they wouldn't want to do this. So I don't think this is right. I think you need to really study this a lot harder and really think harder if you want to do this. Thank you.
Following Mr. McCarron's suggestion, I move to table a decision on this issue. Supervisor Ellen Snyder and I voted to table. Supervisors Dennis Fisher and Kyle Davis voted no. The original motion to okay this extension of the contract also failed by the same yay versus nay votes. This item will be reconsidered at a future board meeting before the current contract expires in November. Thank you for listening. Be sure to visit my website, www.johnmacnewtown.info.